Do you believe in accountable love?
Welcome to Accountable Love, home of the LoveSnobs, where love is a group journey. My name is Jerri.
My name's Aziz.
And today we have a special guest, Erica.
Hello.
Home of the love snobs, love snobs, love snobs. The love snobs have surfaced. You know, the people that actually use honesty to communicate. The genuine friends that refuse to let you feel sorry for yourself. Yes, those people.
You know, the friends that collect your tears every time life makes your eyes rain. The love snobs, the people that don't allow you to settle. Support your dreams, but don't support you sleeping with just anybody.
You know, the friends that are so judgmental they ask you to stay away from negative people and encourage you to surround yourself with positive people.
Yes, that friend. The friends that love you even when you refuse to love yourself.
You know, the love snobs.
What does accountable love mean to you?
Accountable love, what it means to me is, well, I guess we'll like break it up in both two parts, right? Accountability.
Whatever you want.
Yeah, well, no, for me, I mean, well, you know, so one's the whole accountability part, which is just being responsible, right? Mm-hmm. So responsible for your part and what you play in the relationship, in life, and basically taking responsibility of your actions.
Okay.
And then love, which is action. You know, a lot of people feel like it's a feeling and all the rest of it, but really it's not. Well, part of it is a feeling, but it's really action. So, you know, that's what it means. So being responsible in your actions, in your relationships, and really in the things that you do. So I guess that would probably be what accountable love means to me.
Yeah, that's a good, I mean, that's a well thought out definition.
Yeah.
Nice breakdown. Nice
job,
breakdown.
Erica.
So the reason why we start off with asking people what does accountable love mean to them, actually, is because we want to understand what they think accountable love. The whole show is called Accountable Love.
Yeah.
So we want to know that they are on the right path, or they have a different view, or a different, like, they're figuring out what it means to them overall. Because we had people who come and they didn't really have a clue of what it meant. They know what it meant in practice, but they didn't know how to articulate it. You did a good job, obviously.
And we don't want to talk at our guests, we want to have a conversation. So in order to have a conversation, we have to know exactly where you stand.
Right.
Because then we need to meet somewhere. You know what I mean? Like we can assume that you know that you believe accountable love is what we believe, and then we can start the conversation somewhere else. So that's another reason why we want to
be on the same page, because this is all about common ground.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you know, tell us something about the relationships in your life, right?
Relationships.
Yeah.
Well, and it could be romantic, it could be friendships, it could be coworkers.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, we're talking about personal relationships.
So no coworkers.
They wouldn't make
Well, I was talking about myself, but it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but actually it's a good, I know, miss you. So you made a good point. Some, like, you know, people watching probably wouldn't know, you know, that Jerri and I used to work together for like almost 8 years.
Yes.
And a long time, very pivotal point in my life, and probably yours too.
Yeah.
And we definitely, we were on a journey, I think, right? And working together, and towards the end, we're, you know, really became like, I consider Jerri a friend. I can say, you know, whereas a lot of people are, you know, high and by, and that's pretty much it. But I think we really like developed a relationship and kind of like broke through some ground, which in the end was beneficial. But for me and like relationships, period, like, you know, so I guess we could start with family, because I know, okay, you say love relationships, which I just recently started doing this online dating, which I kind of talk about that a little bit, but.
I mean, let us know, you know, let us know what it is.
But, you know, relationships are important to me. I think, like, you know, when it comes to whether it's family or friends, I don't have, like, I have, I guess you say, a lot of associates, and maybe as I've gotten older, not as many.
Okay.
Like, I have a core group of friends that I grew up with. Like, we're like family.
Okay.
And, you know, there's like 10 of us sometimes on a group text. It's crazy sometimes. But, you know, we all find a time to kind of interact and see how each other are doing here and there. And, you know, when someone, like, one of them actually called me Saturday, like, hey, how you doing? You know, we haven't spoken in a while. Just kind of catching up with each other and what's going on in their lives. So there's that. And my parents, like, they don't live here in New York, so I don't see them that regularly. So once a year, I make it a point to go see them, spend some time with them for Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Which is good, and lots of laughs and a lot of other things. But it's good, you know, we have a good relationship. And then with my friends, here, I think I have a very good base as well. And, I have a group of girlfriends where we share things and we do brunches and all the rest of it. And they love the pictures. So you probably, if you're friends, you probably see the pictures on Facebook or Instagram. But we have, some really good relationships there. And then there's my best friend who I met here, who I used to work with also, who used to be my manager, it's like a trend or something. But we developed a good relationship over the years. And actually, there was a point in time where we didn't speak for like 2 years.
Okay.
And which was, kind of interesting. And we kind of had a little tiff, didn't speak for 2 years. And then through another former coworker, we kind of came back together. And I feel like our relationship is stronger now. And she feels the same way. There was just some growth that was needed and, time to think about things and whatever. So, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I try to be accountable, so I'm on accountable love, in my actions and the things that I could do. I'm not perfect, but definitely try to make it a point to, be there, be present. And then there's the romantic relationships, which...
Wait, before we go there, let's go back to the friendship.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that our viewers don't know about you is Erica's not a native New Yorker.
No.
So, you were from Alaska?
I grew up in Alaska, yeah. I spent most of my,
And that's weird. Because when I think Alaska, I don't think Alaska.
I know that
What do you mean I see? So,
that was like the
I think snow.
Wait, did you know that was like the fun fact?
I think snow and black people don't do well in the snow.
Yeah, well, and then it's crazy because just when I thought that everybody knew, then there'd be that one person that
it was like the fun fact. Like, did you know that Erica's from Alaska?
Yeah,
oh my God.
Yeah, so I spent most of my life there.
Yeah, so you're not a native New Yorker. You decided to migrate over to New York with no family. And so, do you think that when you were fostering relationships with other people and getting to know other people, did you either jump all in, or were you a little bit more reserved because you was uncharted territory? So you were getting to know a new city. I mean, they say I've never lived anywhere else, so I don't know what it is to go from one place and live here. But but I do know that New York is fast paced and
I did
it's
it through
big
college, but I didn't never live.
Yeah, but you got a glimpse of
That's
what it
what
was
I'm
to live like
saying,
in slower places, or places that are typically slower.
Well, everything is slower than New York. But
I don't know. I'm like
for the most part,
definitely.
Yeah. It's a different.
So do you feel like
it's like its own bubble?
You fostered different relationships because of that, or do you think you was a little bit more reserved?
I, in general, I like people for the most part. So I can, be in a room.
Social.
And I am social, and I feel like I'm, for the most part, kind of inviting, and I can have a conversation with just about anybody in a room. So that part of it, I think, is just very natural to me. But when it comes to actually, like I say, with people, and, this has kind of changed over the years, I think, as I've gotten older, you become more, I don't want to say reserved, but definitely, you have to be careful, right? Because, for one, relationships, apprehensive.
Yeah.
And just you feel people out because everybody can't be one in your circle.
Definitely.
You shouldn't be fooling with everybody, too. So it's kind of that matter, sometimes it's just a matter of meeting this person and okay, they're cool for that moment. It was what it was, high and by, and that's it. And just basically seeing how, maybe where that relationship, if anything, will go. I think, even let's say for college, because I came here to finish school, I met 2 girls who actually were younger than I was at the time, and still are. And became really good friends with them. And both of them were only children. It was really weird, but both of them originally from New York. One in Rockland County and one up north by Albany. And
I don't know if we claim them, but I don't know if we claiming them. We're New York City, but
right. My
but
point
they are
is,
from New York.
Right, they are from New York. I'm not.
Definitely.
We're not even from the city. But then, just fostering those relationships. So you find commonalities, and you find there's things in people where it's funny. From appearance at first, sometimes you would never even think that you would have any interest with a person, or even based on age or something like that. But then we have a conversation, and you get to know them, you're like, oh.
Yeah, we actually can roll.
Exactly. So that whole judging a book by its cover type of thing, which you shouldn't do, right? And it's funny, Jerri and I just joke too. I'm like, who would have thought the chick from Alaska and the chick from the Bronx, or
Excuse me, I'm not from the Bronx.
Well, when I met her, she's from the
Barrio,
Bronx.
El Barrio,
Oh
Spanish
gosh,
Harlem.
it's no.
Yeah, we ain't claiming.
From New York.
Even though
okay,
you're
we just
more
say
from the
New
Bronx
York.
than you are.
I know that's
Spanish Harlem. You live
that's
longer
what
in the
Nadine
Bronx.
told me. Yeah, she said
most of your
yeah.
adult life.
No, I am not,
Not
from the Bronx.
I am not from the Bronx.
She's not
I
claiming
retract
it.
that statement.
She's
This
not
girl
claiming
from
it.
Spanish Harlem.
Yes, exactly,
Definitely,
But just like two different like
They
walks
go
of
out
life,
Bronx
basically,
viewers.
and like whatever. Yeah. Now you've offended
They
a
go
lot
out
of people,
Bronx
Jerry.
viewers.
But yeah, so it's just interesting, and people grow and evolve. Like I've told you like many times, I'm sure, and I'm saying it again. Like I feel like in the years that I've known Jerri, like I've seen she's like evolved and transitioned into like this whole different person, like and not in a bad way. Not that you were like a bad person when I met you, but just different, And I think that like
She was nice about it.
Yeah,
I would have just been straight to the point, like, she was immature before, now she matured into.
is that what it is? Maybe I can probably.
Yeah, I
I
think
say
because
absolutely.
even like the way that I like
She had
what
immature hobbies.
Yes, like recreationally, I was immature.
Okay, yeah.
I always had to be on the scene. Like the people that I was rolling with were immature. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
And there was no foundation.
Yeah.
It's like having
And
a nice
although you
house
always
with
saw
the
that-
house leaning.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I
But
mean?
you
It's
also
nice,
you saw
but
the
it's
potential in
leaning.
me because whenever we would talk, we would have our conversations were still always solid, but
Right.
then I'm out doing whatever. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
So not everything was aligned
Yeah.
at one point in my life too.
Yeah,
so
life
Right.
is a walking,
so
sometimes it can be a walking contradiction.
Yeah, absolutely. So
definitely.
you was able to see me through those transitions. I mean, we sat next to each other for many years.
Yeah.
Like literally.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, for the 5 of the 5 years that for the 5 of the 8 years that she worked at Yerman, we sat literally next to each
Yeah,
other.
yeah.
So, those phone calls, those things happen, I turn around like, did you leave? Or we're having, whatever conversation. And
That was the gossip queen.
No, but
You know what I mean? X, Y, and Z. I can't
well,
believe
we did gossip, but we also vented and we
Right.
problem solved, or
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it was there's something like when you sit next to somebody that you don't really have a lot of privacy. So,
right.
so either you take your calls away from your desk all the time, or you sit there and you know that
you bring them into the call.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And you hang up the phone. You're like, what the hell just happened? I'm like,
Right.
girl. I mean, she's heard me on the phone with my dad.
Yeah.
She's. I'm like, you don't get it. You don't get it. And she's like, you're on the phone with your dad, right?
Or it was called like, what? I'm like, I got it. Don't worry. I'm like, yeah, like,
Yeah. So
Definitely.
yeah. So I think that it created a level of intimacy between us as well, because
Absolutely.
we sat in such small quarters that she was able to live the transition with me.
Right.
But I think that's the relationships. I think over the last, I strongly believe, over the last, like those are the part of the relationship where though y'all had that comfort, y'all didn't really start building more of a foundation or a solid relationship until y'all really started talking about what you believe in, till you made those transitions.
Absolutely,
Because
yeah,
I
I
watched
agree with that.
the evolution of the friendship.
Yeah.
Like I've been
I
to little
agree with that.
karaoke parties, I'm
Yeah.
sitting there, everything is ha ha ha. Now you're like, okay, I can actually be sober, still wild out, still sit there, like still snatching mics and
Yeah, Jerri
doing
don't
all
need
this.
alcohol.
Now you see we showing our age, but they're like, now you can still jump around and do all the other stuff, but at the same time, you're responsible. You was a
Yeah.
lot more responsible, and I can see now when the relationships, now she understood, oh, this is what I'm about.
Yeah.
Before it's like, we could talk about this today, and then we could talk about this today. That's total opposite of what we talked about
Yeah.
yesterday. Now you are more grounded, I would say, and it's good that you've seen her
Yeah.
evolve into that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
that
It was
person.
like it's a whole, when you, like she said, when you've been around somebody for so many years and like see the transitions and have the small conversations and here and there, and then you're on projects together, you sit next to each other. Like how could you not? Maybe in some cases people.
there's been times
well,
where,
yeah. Well, and there's a few people in that, but in that area where you're kind of like, okay, but. And I think it's just being open, right? Being open and like, okay, kind of like almost like inching in, like, bit by bit. And had you not been comfortable, you wouldn't have been sitting there having those conversations, you know what I'm saying? So it's like one of those things too where, it's just bit by bit. So yeah.
Well, I mean, you.
I think you have more intimate discussions as you mature.
You do,
Absolutely.
and it's again like.
So that's what it
happening-
was.
Well, and not only that, but you don't really, like I said, you can get up from your desk every 5 seconds to have a conversation. But I typically don't have trust issues, and not to say that I didn't think that you were different, but
Right.
I did. Like I didn't feel like there were certain conversations that all of my conversations I didn't mind having in front of you because I didn't think that it would go beyond that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like we are at work. You know what I
Right.
mean? So you are taking a chance per se, but at
Right,
the same time,
right.
like I didn't really think, or I felt like I believed that you had enough integrity that the conversation would stay
right where it was,
in
right.
that little corner that we sat in.
Right.
So I think that too, but I think that happened because I unlike me, like you were not. I mean, you were. Recreationally, we never really did the same thing, which is probably why we never hung out after work anyway. But but you were more on the mature side as well. So you were already at a place. Maybe I kind of caught up to you. You know what I mean?
No, because I think, and knowing y'all, and knowing the story, and knowing over time, is because you had a solid faith.
Yeah, she had
She was still searching for her faith.
Yeah.
She was
And I
still
would say that
searching
we
on
talk
where she
about
wanted,
that as well.
where she wanted to be. So when you have a solid faith, unlike me, where you want to talk about principles, direction, things of that nature, you want to build your friends off of those foundations and then start building the actual relationship.
Right.
She's like, we party, you drink sangria, I drink sangria. Let's go. We like, okay, and before you know it, you got a sangria relationship. Yeah, you got a sangria relationship for 5 years and don't even know what the person's child's name is. So, you know.
It's interesting you say that too, because like I have a cousin that lives here in New York that I didn't know about for years. And then my mother went to like someone died or funeral, something like that, and then she calls me, oh, you have a cousin in New York. I'm like, okay, because, you know, I mean, we're all adults now at this point. I didn't grow up with you, around you. I don't know who you are. Yes, we're family. That's great.
But I don't know you.
But right, I don't know you. Like, I don't know Hogany. Listen, everybody locked up.
I don't know you like that.
Everybody locked up. Everybody somewhere. Somebody's family. So,
Definitely.
like, you know. So it's kind of like,
sketchy.
right, yeah, I was like, okay. So, you know, we met, we had dinner, and actually even then, like, it seemed cool, but then, like, you know, I reached out a little bit, and it was kind of like, so after a while, I was like, okay. And then it wasn't until, like, her 40th, right before her 40th birthday party, she called me, invited me to dinner, and, like, since then, we've been, like, really solid and building. And then about 3 years ago, she was like, oh, we were talking right before Christmas. She's like, what are you doing for Christmas? And I'm like, oh, I'll be here, because, you know, Thanksgiving is my time to go away. So I'm like, and she's like, oh, I'm going to a friend's house. Like, when you want me to see if you can come? I'm like, sure. And since then, for the past 3 years, I've been going to
The friend's house
for Christmas.
cute.
And like, and I see them, and she's like, are we gonna see you for Christmas this year? I'm like, of course. All I needed was an invitation. She's like, you don't need an invitation. You just need to let us know why you're not gonna be there if you don't show up. I'm like, okay, got it. But even last week, I found out more about her because we're only around each other, like, you know, once or twice a year, certain events.
So it's family.
And like around her kid, right? Exactly. Her kids call me Auntie Erica, but there still were like things about her I didn't really know.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying? And so even now, and she's like, she lives in Brooklyn, not that far away. And she's like, you know, we need to like, you know, get together and like, and so, you know, that's something that I'm definitely looking to try to build that relationship as well.
Definitely.
Because she's a, you know, a great woman. You invited me into your home, your space, and, you know, and then like, otherwise my butt would be at home, like watching TV and probably ordering takeout, you know?
Definitely.
So it's, like you said, you could be around people, kind of have these seemingly, like connections and relationships.
Fluffy.
What you do,
It was a fluffy,
right?
it's a fluffy connection.
Exactly.
And I really know them.
Exactly.
And you're
yeah.
bouncing around because
Yeah.
it's fluffy
Yeah.
and nothing solid.
And I'm not, right, because more surface. And I'm not a surface person. So
Definitely.
that's kind of what it is for the most part. Like I said, it's either like we in this or we're not. Like there's not me in the gray area and in between when it comes to relationships. It doesn't really work for me.
I think when you said something at home, because we realized this in one of our earlier segments, that we usually say, oh, Jerri's like my family. But really, we think friends are stronger than family.
Yeah, they can
Because
absolutely be that way.
Family,
Absolutely.
friends are the foundation of every relationship.
Yes.
And we realized that over doing Accountable Love and podcasting and actually having discussions and actually looking up words and actually making sure that we're clear on what we're trying to state. And we found ourselves just doing the cliche thing by saying, oh, she's like family. But really, she's a friend, which is stronger than family because we actually built a bond based on similar
We made a
principles.
choice, yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So like family, you come in, you got to deal with whoever they are. They got to deal with whoever you are. Y'all really don't have a relationship unless y'all friends.
Right. Sure.
You see what I'm saying? You really don't have a strong romantic relationship unless y'all friends. Usually when, like you see so many people, that's my baby mother. Y'all don't hang out. I don't know what she does. How do you not know what somebody you had a child with does? Because you didn't start as friends. Y'all started out with the attraction. Y'all didn't start out with the commonality of friendship
Or they also
the foundation of friendship.
Or they also didn't end it as friends either, because just because, I mean, you can have a lustful relationship, it doesn't work out, and realize, hey, this is not going to work out. If no one did anything crazy to one another, you guys can still be friends.
Right.
Or, you know, or at least cordial.
Yeah.
Yeah, like to not to say, like, I don't know where this person's at. I mean, when you're parenting, you guys should be talking.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to know the ins and outs, but you should know enough to know that the person that you had a kid with would not ever put your kid in harm's way, or.
But there's a lot of nasty stuff that happened, and it's because, you know, like I've always, and I guess since a young age, I've always gone in like, this is my friend. So everybody's weirded out that I always have my ex-girlfriend still around in some capacity. They're like, oh, you have to be hitting that. You have to be messing with it. And I'm like, no, we're friends. If anything, if you just met a female, right, and now she's your friend, you're thinking more about her than I am people I already had relationships with.
Yeah.
Like we already done it. Right. We don't want to do it again.
Right.
We want to do the relationship. So my foundation is more solid because I have a relationship with the opposite sex that I'm real clear on. We don't need to go there.
Right.
Versus somebody I've never been there with, and I'm always wondering, can we go there? So people don't really look at it from that aspect. You know what I'm saying? So that's why when you said, oh, they're like family now, I'm like, it triggered, like, no, they're your friends. They're stronger than family. They're people that are possibly in your day-to-day, your family. And if your mother's your friend, then y'all in contact a lot. But if your mother's not your friend, y'all speak every so often. You know what I mean? Your brothers, your sisters just speak every so often. So I noticed that. And I also noticed you say, I'm not perfect, which we also was talking about. Like everybody knows that. Why like we always feel like we have to say that because we don't want to look like know-it-alls. We don't want to look like, but if you're strong in your faith and you're convicted, I don't see the point in what's the problem with being definite about what you believe.
Not true. And
you shouldn't have to make other people feel comfortable in the room. That's not really your job. Your job is to state who you are, be confident in who you are, and then have the dialogue. That's what we talk about with Accountable Love. It's about having the dialogue. I don't like what she says. I'm going to say something about it. But I'm going to be confident and I'm going to be direct that I don't like it, why I don't like it, and she's going to challenge me. I better know why I don't like it. You know, so like that's how it gets to a common place where we're like, and the whole agree to disagree thing, we don't even let that, because then we're on separate ends. We can agree to disagree about food. We can't agree to disagree about principles. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's where the more important things come in. So I heard you say those little things that were triggered. So I'm like, I'm a U-turn, I'm gonna come back to that.
But since we are making a U-turn going the other way again, going back, you mentioned that you and your friend, your best friend, weren't friends for 2 years, and then you guys took the time apart, and then you guys now reconnected, and you guys are stronger than ever. I know one of the mistakes that I used to make was me and somebody's not speaking, a year or two passes, they call me or connect with me on something, I don't know, a death in the family, we're back in, we don't even talk about the problem, and then everything kind of just like, we act like it never happened, and then we move forward, and then we hit that same roadblock again, because we never really talked about the root cause. Did you take the time to have the conversation with your friend, not to say homegirl? all that.
That's like, she's like sister, that's like my sister from like literally, like it's funny, we talk about that, like that is family, friend, like all that. Her kids are my niece, my nephew, her brother, her husband's my brother-in-law. Like we like, you know what I mean? It's
village.
All the way. All the way.
And
like it's
welcome to the club.
You know, and we did. So it was interesting because it was around the holidays, so right after, and a former coworker was like, "Oh, Merry Christmas." I'm like, "Thank you." And she's like, "Oh, Freddie asked for your Freddie asked you for your number," and I was like, okay, like, you know, and had I not even thought to ask, like, well, did you give it to her? It probably would have stopped there. So I was like, did you give it to her? And she's like, oh no, I was wanting to see if it was okay with you first, and like, blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, were you gonna ask me that? Or like, you know, I'm like, sure, it's fine. Time went by a little bit, and then one day I got like a text, and I was like, oh, okay, you know, here we go. Because like I said, we were close, and even then, when we kind of talked about it, she was like, you know, like I met her family, you know, around her cousins and all the rest of the aunts and uncles and everybody like that. So we were really close, had a good relationship. And it was, we did talk about kind of like the whole situation that led to, we used to work together, and like right before I left the job is when the things kind of got like a little shifty.
No, dicey.
And
You abandoned her.
I told her, it wasn't even that. We were having a conversation. I responded, and she didn't like the response or the way that I gave it, and how she took it. And so we talked about that. Like after, it's like, you know, at the end of the day, for me, one thing about people, like I'm not easily offended. One, you know, some people are. I'm not, but one thing for sure is like when I'm dealing with people, and especially if I know them, I'm thinking about intentions, because things come through sometimes. Right, things come through, but people get in their emotions and feelings, and they don't think about that.
Track record.
Exactly. So it's just like, I'm not gonna, you know, one, if you feel that way, like, you know, yes, we need to have a conversation, but two, you have to think about the person I am. You know me, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not gonna do anything intentionally, like, to hurt you, to go outside the way, to do whatever. Like, that's just who I am. So, you know, that's one thing that I always come back to in a lot of things. And like, so we talked about it, hash it out. You know, now it's like one of those things. Even now, she'll be like, I know it was 2 years. I'm so sorry. I'm like, you know, it's like, it's, you know, listen, we need it. I feel like we're stronger now. And she's like, agrees. You know, it's like once you kind of get something out the way, and sometimes people just need to grow, you know. And she does a lot of like self-development and, you know, looking at ways to better self and things like that. And she was reading the book. And then that's kind of how the whole thing like transitioned. So. Yeah,
but 2 years is a long time.
It is.
Yeah.
I
mean,
listen, she had a baby. She bought a
yeah,
house.
y'all
Like
diamond
it
in the
was like
rough.
crazy. It was so crazy, and it was like literally even to the point where she had just like I had a dream. Like we had spoken like months, and I had a dream that like I found one of our mutual friends was like, oh yeah, she just had a baby shower or whatever, and she's having a girl. I was like, that's so crazy. I said, because I had a dream literally, and in the dream her husband was saying something like, oh yeah, the little, like something about a little girl, whatever. But like even in all those months of like not talking and whatever, it was just like, it was just interesting. Yeah, it was just, it was just weird. But yeah, it's like you have that space, that time, but you know,
we don't condone the 2 years.
Yeah,
2
it wasn't
years.
even, listen, I would have
You don't need to grow that much, because so many things happen in 2 years that you don't need to grow that much. But
I reached out right after we kind of stopped speaking because it bothered me, right? Like we're friends, like, you know, like what's the deal?
That's what you're supposed to do.
We did right,
Have
but
a
then it
discussion.
went like, you know, it wasn't really a discussion. After that, it was like, you know, a couple words, like that was it. And so I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna keep pushing, like I'm not gonna, So did it hurt? Yeah, like we were actual friends, like we were close.
Definitely.
But then, you know, times came around, things just kind of came full circle, and then sometimes that's how, you know, it works. Sometimes you never speak to a person again.
Well, you got to factor it in life. That's what happens in life.
Yeah.
But actually, when you're living in a healthy life, you would have had those. Y'all would have put the friendship ahead of your egos.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And y'all would have had a healthy discussion right off.
Yep.
Because you lost 2 years. Y'all looking at it as like they need time, but you actually lost 2 years. Like I felt when we weren't talking.
I was just gonna say
for our
that.
little. I mean, what was it? A year?
Was it a year?
Did it make it a
don't
year?
remember.
Well, we wasn't talking for a while, and you had a whole nother life.
I sure did. I was
You
engaged.
get what I'm saying? And when you actually came back in my life,
Gosh, remember that time?
I didn't really have room for you. You know what I mean? Like we still had a bond. We still had the years before, but I didn't have room for you because at the same time you promised a relationship to certain other people.
Right.
So you have like a best friend. Y'all don't speak for a while. She's not coming back as your best friend.
Yeah.
Because there's somebody else in that 2 years that's gonna have a strong place in your life, and then you gotta.
And somebody kind of like
You change priority.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell people all the time. No matter if you're going to be honest about it or not, you lose priority. You don't speak to somebody. You take let's say me and you are cool, where we're really close. I take a job in Alaska. Let's use it. Let's use that. I take a job in Alaska. You can support me and say, yeah, I want you to, be happy, take a job. But I broke a bond. Because I was accessible before, and now I'm not as accessible. Somebody else is gonna come in your life. Yeah, but people are gonna come in your life and fill that void that I once filled. So when you come back, you can't just like, listen.
To a degree, I feel like, right? Like
Go ahead.
So for instance, like the people that I did grow up with, we have like, boom. We get together, it's like we just was like hanging out last week or whatever, but because we had that foundation. So like, yes, if you moved to Alaska, right, and we was tight before then and we used to hang out a lot and things like that, that part of the relationship would change.
Definitely.
But if we like, you're still communicating and finding out what's going on in people's lives and things like that, I think that part of it and the relationship takes a different turn, I guess you could say, or twist,
Definitely.
right? But I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily say, so you would be replaced in that.
I'm saying you'll be replaced in the fact that physically, you're hanging out with somebody physically, so you're replaced in that way. So you are, no matter what people say, you are giving up a portion of your friendship to actually fulfill a personal goal.
Absolutely.
So like that's all I'm saying. Before you fulfill personal goals, you got to really look at what you're giving up.
Yeah.
And that's what I always say. I recommend to people like really think about what you're giving up, because though me and you can see each other, we have years, right? So we pick up where we left off. I'll put you in the family category.
But yeah,
we're not friends
or
anymore.
it's like whenever I come to visit, I'm like a guest.
Yeah.
So like it's like you'll block out time for the weekend for me, but I ain't getting no more than that. If I decide to stay 2 weeks, then we have to have a conversation about me staying 2 weeks. But it won't be. But that's what it be like. You'll block out time. You won't be doing the day to day with that person.
Yeah.
And you can expect that. Well, obviously because the person moved away. Now the person decides, you know what, Alaska was. If Aziz decides Alaska's not for me, let me come back. He can't just think that he can just get Wednesday nights again.
Right.
He has to figure out what other nights are available because somebody else got
Or if
Wednesday
any
now.
are not- yeah.
Even if you have any,
yeah,
because it's all good when he was visiting.
Right.
But now now it's like,
Yeah,
are
your
you
life
going to be able to
changes.
maintain that? Yeah.
Because I learned that when I went away to school.
Right.
I went away to
Yeah.
school and came back, and that's only 6 months before
Yeah.
you go to now's winter break, winter
Yeah,
recess,
yeah,
right?
and things
You go
change.
in and you're like, yo, this guy has a job here. They
This
don't
guy
have
got a
the same
girlfriend.
time for you. And then you realize how
Life
alone you are,
changes,
and
yeah.
like and it changed because
Yeah.
you chose to go out of town instead of going to college in town.
Yeah.
And then your friends change out of town. So you bringing new friends
Yes,
into the
whole
mix,
new
and they
equation.
don't really like each other. It gets to a weird place. So I'm saying people really need to be mindful. I mean, that's why we do our podcast. So
Right.
people are mindful of their
Right.
relationships because you actually promise people things.
It's true. No, it's true. And I literally, like, because I'm, I don't know if I said this to you, like, when I was at Yerman, but, like, I'm like, I could leave New York tomorrow. Like,
Yes,
I literally,
yes,
like,
yeah.
I'm to
I
the
thought
point
you
now where
would've.
I'm kind of over New York, right? But in the same token, I feel like I do think about that too. Like, the
Definitely.
relationships obviously that I've developed and depending on where you relocate and all of that. Because and you have different relationships with people for, I don't say different reasons, but they fulfill different things sometimes in your life, right? Like you may
Definitely.
have several that kind of fulfill the same thing, but then you have your smaller core, your circle, your, people that are closer and that you actually,
Your
share a
that's
lot
your
more.
foundation.
Exactly, exactly. And so, in thinking about that and the relationships you have with them and how those evolve, like me and my younger sister are actually really close as well. And we're very close in age, and so.
I know, so when you say younger sister, it just seemed weird to me.
Yeah.
Even though she is younger than you.
Yeah. We're like, and she's taller and everything else, but like.
Well, that's not hard.
But right, no, this is true.
That's not a feat.
But we have a good relationship too, even though she's in Arizona. We talk and so I think cultivating even when like certain dynamics of the relationship change, right? Because relationships are investments, and we need to
definitely.
be investing and constantly kind of making sure we're doing that. Otherwise, they just kind of they could flatline,
Definitely.
right? So just putting in that investment in that time, and even though it may be a little different, you still can find ways to build, stay connected. And I feel like still, people have best friends who don't live in the same state as them, right? They live somewhere else because someone moved or whatever. But if you take that time to still cultivate that relationship and it's important to you and you both put in that effort,
Definitely.
and there's that reciprocity, then, it's some dynamics of it will change. You maybe not see each other as often, but the foundation of the relationship stays the same,
But
or grows.
But as a society, we're taught that, if it's not your husband or a sister or whatever the case may be, like, you're not supposed to have a certain level of support, like, from friends, right? So I used to think the same way, too. Like, if I moved out of state, like, which I probably would never do, but if I moved out of state, it wouldn't be a big deal. Aziz is a phone call away, right? But what I realized over time is that Aziz is my support in New York. Like, it's a difference. Like, he gives me what we give each other support that you can't get over the phone. You know what I mean? That you can't, that you can't wait for necessarily. It's hands-on support that people take for granted,
Right.
especially when it's coming from friends, or maybe they don't have it with their friends. But when you move away, like, yes, could I raise Camille by myself? Absolutely. But should I be raising Camille by myself? Probably not. And if I can raise Camille with a group of other people, then why not?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And why shouldn't I show her that I can raise her with a group of people as opposed to me, mommy, me against the world.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Definitely.
and so yes, we can do the long. I mean, I've had a friend that she lived in Yonkers. We talked on the phone every day, and we did have that connection. But there was still, I wouldn't say a wedge, but we didn't connect when it came to our kids necessarily. So because we had like a long distance relationship. You know what I mean? We talked to each other every day, but we knew about each other's day-to-day life, but we weren't in each other's day-to-day
Right.
life. And I think that makes a real big difference.
Real big
You don't
difference.
really think of it much because I'm still connected with her. I knew everything that was going on with her. I helped through some stuff. She helped me through some stuff. Whenever I needed her to come down, she came down. Whenever she needed me to go up, I went up. But there's something about that
There's
day-to-day
distance between you.
support
There's distance
that
between you.
that I didn't even, at a time in my life, I didn't even think that it made a difference, but
Right.
it makes all the difference.
Right, it does. And I think it makes a difference, too, on the type of relationship, right? So especially like in you guys' case, where it's definitely a village and you guys spend a lot of time together and helping and support with the children and a lot of other things, like the physicality of it all. And whereas, like, for instance, for me, my best friend's married, has 2 kids, been married forever. lives in Long Island, you know, so works in Long Island City. You know, I'm in Brooklyn, so it's like we don't spend or we don't see each other, you know. I'd say we definitely carve out time, like, you know, once or twice a month to try to get together. What's going on? I'm free this weekend. Let's do this. Let's do something. So it's a different type of relationship, right? In that manner. But you're absolutely correct. Like, if you have, depending on your life and kind of what's going on and how you've been doing things, then it will turn your world upside down.
Definitely.
It's a whole nother, it's a whole nother
Because
thing.
now you get a partner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now you have kids.
Yeah.
Because
It's like
it's easy
having
because you're not in that.
being married
Y'all
because
not in the
you're like-
same bracket.
Yeah.
But if y'all in the same bracket, what's
Yeah.
happening?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think it should be every other weekend we actually go up there, and that's what is a routine. That's when you start, like what you said is an investment. When you start investing in people, like most people invest in money. You're supposed to invest in people, which will bring money.
Yeah.
It will bring everything. Because if she got $10, I got $10, you got $10, we get a meal.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So like it brings everything together. So I do think what y'all doing is great. That's a friendship. That is a friendship. But what I'm saying is, can you, when you ask yourself, can your friendship go a little deeper? Is where the question will be. Do you think so? Could your friendship go a little deeper? Like, could there be more of an investment?
I mean, there's always room for, I don't want to say growth, but to yourself, like we, you know, as you dig deeper and as we evolve as people, I think that, again, I'm not as, like Jerri said, she's like more like, I don't want to say open book, but you know, you like definitely what you see is what you get, you know what I'm saying? And I've definitely, while over the last couple years, maybe not as much, but I'm more, you know, a little guarded, right? Or can be when I meet people. Like I need to see what, because I'm a person too. Like I'm all in. Like if I'm in, I'm in. You know.
Definitely.
So again, I don't have a lot of gray area. That's not a thing for me. When it comes to like relationships, a lot of times. So I have to be mindful of that's who I am as a person, and I need to, you know, definitely make sure that I.
Do you think that that's a strength? Not having.
I don't know that I would consider a strength or a weakness. I think that it's more of a, I don't want to say it's a necessity, I think, for me. Because if I'm a person who, you know, because you can't just be jumping or shouldn't be jumping into everything with everybody, right? So even if I have a connection with you, doesn't necessarily mean that we're meant to like stand the test of time, if you will, like within relationships.
Definitely.
So that's where I think I have to be kind of careful, right, with people around me who I'm involving myself with. So again, it's kind of like that kind of caution, like seeing who you are as a person. And things
I'm
like
talking
that.
about not having a lot of gray. Do you think that's a strength or a weakness?
It depends on what it is. So with
Okay.
relationships and things like that, like it's funny because this was the other thing with my best friend and I. Like I would always say, I'm like, there is a gray area. She used to be very black and white, and I'm like, life is not. It's just not black and white. Now that yes, there are certain things like you said, you have your core principles and values and things like that. Like that's what it is. Like I'm not budging on that. But there's so much in the world that it's not strictly. Sometimes there's a gray. So you know, and that's the reality of it.
But when the person says like, they would say I'm a black and white person, right? Straight to the point, principles, honor those principles, make a promise, honor that promise, right? So they say I'm black and white. I think that's a strength because the black and whites have to make decisions. All the leaders are black and white. If you notice, the leaders you can hate me, but somebody has to make decisions.
Right.
And making decisions, all the gray, you still got to make a decision through the gray.
Absolutely.
So when a person says a person's black and white, that means that doesn't mean they can't see the gray. That just means they're progressive. That means they're trying to now make sense out of the gray. Because we can't say we're going to this club and that person say they're going to that club and that person say they're going to that club. I want to go here, I want to go here. Who's making that decision? The black and white person. We can't all end up in different clubs. We want to go to a club together. That's the objective.
But could you say that maybe for your friend it necessarily wasn't that she was black and white and didn't see the gray, but could it be that maybe she was stubborn in certain areas and that's the part that you didn't like? Not necessarily that she was black and white. You know what I mean? But like for instance, like I have an issue with going outside of the plan. That's always been an issue of mine. That's still an issue of mine. Now, do I know that sometimes, you know, things don't happen as scheduled? Yes. Can I get better at dealing with that? Absolutely. But I like if we're gonna start at 150, let's start at 150. Tell me be here 150. You know what I mean?
Right.
Although I know that there could have been something stopping you from getting here at 150. I need to understand that there's a possibility that things may go off a schedule, and I should be able to I should be able to still move forward. Not get stuck in the fact that we're not on schedule and it didn't go as planned.
So she couldn't cope when things didn't go according to plan.
Yeah. So that's an issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, could somebody that doesn't really know me or can't really articulate it say, "Hey, I'm real black and white"? Probably, but really, I got other issues, which is like, you know, like it's not about black and white in that situation. Although it is a black and white thing, on time, not on time, But the fact that I couldn't regroup fast or recover fast because something went out off schedule is the issue. Even though you know that some things can go off schedule.
But I think that's when black and whites come together. So like,
sounds like a task force.
I know, but it's like what we always say. When two principles don't go well together, which one do you honor?
Yeah.
So that's where everybody goes through. Like, what principle do you actually honor? So you're like, being on time is a principle.
It is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You said you're going to do something, do it. So you deserve a promise being kept.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that's confidence. That's just something that you are self-assured. You have an understanding of what you deserve, and you're not going to go beneath that. But then a person something happened based on them arriving late. Understand their circumstance, that's also a practice, meaning that you also have to be empathetic and understand what's going on. Those are both two principles. Those both can be black and white things. You get what I'm saying? So which one are you going to use? The empathy portion, because the excuse made sense. But if the excuse don't make sense, you still going to shoot them out. So your black and white still gave you the structure on how to take this information in. But really, you couldn't cope. And you didn't even want to see the other person. So that's what the issue is. You're selfish. So now I would be like, you're selfish. Because you can't even be empathetic. You're not listening to the other person, what the other person's saying. Or you believe the other person's full of it.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much most of the time. Like, or the underlying issue. Like, we talk about underlying issues on the show all the time. Like, every argument stems from a belief of the person, right? So the belief is that you don't give a shit about me or time, and you're just gonna do what you want anyway. So because I believe that anyway, I don't care if somebody got struck by a train on the way down, or you lost your keys, and whatever the case may be. I always go back to how I see you, which is you don't get you're lax. You don't care about time anyway. So why wouldn't you? Why would you get here on time?
Which is based on patterns and history, and things
or
of that
just
nature,
based on my own or based on the fact that I came up. Like, we create things in our head that don't even exist.
Yes.
Like I may think,
and your experiences too, like as your personal experiences, absolutely.
So like based on let's go back to your friend. Like, maybe she wasn't necessarily she had black and principles, right? That she stood by, but it's really when things kind of went outside of that, how does she react to that? I think that would be the telling sign on, the whole. Everyone needs black and white, honestly, because we need order.
Yep, absolutely.
So it's needed.
Yeah.
So, and you, like you said, you needed to, like as you said, you needed to lead.
And it's actually a virtue.
Yeah.
Well, and it's
we
structure.
frown upon it, but it's a virtue.
It's that structure, and like, while a lot of people like to do whatever, like, we like structure as human beings. Like, and then if you don't have it, it's a whole bunch of chaos and everything else. So it's necessary. I think in the case of what you said, it wasn't even so much of. I'm trying to think of maybe like a situation or actual. It's been so long because now that since like the break and everything else,
and she has 2 kids now. Things are different.
Yeah, she had one before. Okay. But like the second one, so even before then, she sees the world differently, right? And I think like the introspectiveness and doing more kind of like work on self. And it's funny because now sometimes we talk about certain things. She's like, yeah, things aren't black and white always. Like certain situations or things like that, right? You look at, so it's more so with situations, and as opposed to, again, like the principle of person being on time or like things like that. So I don't know I don't think so much that it was that. It was just like, for whatever reason, sometimes people kind of have like a tunnel vision, or they feel a certain way, and like that's just it. More so based on their experience and they and what they've gone through, and they can't really see. While they can like hear you and say like, they still like, but this is what it is.
But that's bullheadedness.
Yeah.
It's bullheadedness. Like you're being nice.
Yeah.
You trying to be nice. Like that's my friend.
It could be.
We got one together.
even think
You're like,
of,
that's my friend,
well,
but at the same time, it's selfishness because if you're built, black and white is used out of context.
Yeah.
It's used out of
Yeah,
context.
it can
Like
be.
that's not tunnel vision. That's selfishness. Tunnel vision is selfishness. Black and white is like we have a issue in front of us. Let's make a decision.
Yeah.
Black and white people just always want to make decisions. So you know how like you come, my boyfriend just cheated on me, X, Y, and Z, and they like, oh, just let her vent. Black and white people is like, no. There's no way I'm listening to this the whole time with no solution.
Yeah.
Go talk to her about that. That's a black and white person because over
Yeah.
time you're gonna need me to come up with solution.
Yeah.
But you're not ready for solution, so you came to the wrong friend.
Right. But I don't think, I think that sometimes people they get in their own, someone's here, I think. They get in their, I don't even say their own, get in their own, I don't even say own way, but like they don't even see, like you said, like bullheadedness or whatever. Like, and yes, it can be looked at it that way. And like, I didn't even look at it that way just based off of like the relationship and like, who I know this person to be. But I don't even think sometimes that people even see it that way. And I'm trying to think of like more serious issues, right? Or like you say, or infidelities or, things like that. Like those are issues where, like you say, yeah, ultimately people need to make a decision.
Definitely.
Like you have to make a decision. And I'm one that I say like, yeah, you can have a pity party, right? You may have, I believe everybody can have their chance to have your down day, your little pity party for a couple days.
Definitely.
But after that, I'm like, we gotta
make a decision.
Yeah, you gotta get like, what are you gonna do?
We gotta
Because
make a
I'm very
decision.
solution driven also. Like you can't like, okay, this is great, I understand, I get it, but what is the outcome? What are you gonna do now?
Definitely.
So it's, and so I think that's when I say like, well, yes, structure, black and white, there are things where it's just like there are no gray area for me. And then in the other part, maybe, with the gray, like say like the empathy or whatever, like, okay, you have your little time right now, but what are we gonna do?
The thing about the gray area, it kind of gives people the space to not be accountable in a lot of areas.
Definitely.
It can be.
So that's why
It's
the
a
gray
problem.
area, the gray area doesn't really.
It causes chaos.
Yeah, it doesn't really sit well with me a lot of the times, even though sometimes I know I have to venture off outside of the plan to get things done. But at the same time, like if we can stick to the script, I would like to stick to the script.
No,
Right.
but gray is not outside of the plan. Gray is not really outside unless you made a promise, because there are two separate human beings. Gray is the plan that we make together and stick. I mean, black and white is the plan we make together and sticking to it, right?
Yeah.
Gray is just understanding that there are things that are out of our control. There are arguments. There are certain things where you think something different than I think. We're in a gray area right there. We can't move until we resolve it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's what gray is. Some people stay in that.
Yeah, they do.
That's the gray people. They love chaos. So like what they do at our show, why don't more people have different views? And I'm like, this is a show for education. This is a show to grow people. This is a show, you're trying to cause chaos. You want entertainment. Yeah, we'll get a lot of ratings with entertainment.
Right.
Yeah.
But we don't want to sit here and go back and forth with somebody who's chaotic. We want to actually have a discussion so we can find common ground. We can all have different views, but we got to find what's common within our views.
Absolutely.
We're working towards now having stronger personal relationships throughout the world.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is to find commonality and all the difference. We all can say, oh, he's different. We know that everybody's different in some capacity. Why are we not working for more commonality?
Yeah,
So
I
we can
find
actually
that.
come together. That's what the issue is. So it's a sad thing that controversy is what everybody's looking for
Yeah, it is.
when they turn on a podcast or when
Yeah.
they turn on TV.
Yeah.
It's the drama.
Yeah.
And when we was just talking about, the drama comes from holding, how much drama do we have just trying to hold everything together with several different opinions?
Yeah.
That's enough drama. We don't need extra drama.
Nope.
You know what I mean? That's the structure, but we out of time. We out of time. Sorry, Erica, we got to bring you back and we can talk about your internet
We
dating.
can talk about internet dating. We don't have to talk about that. Like the whole third season, just like.
Yeah. We got to bring you back, but
That's what happens when you get three talkers, right?
Definitely,
Like
definitely.
thinking like whatever.
well,
yeah.
no, it's a great thing.
Oh, yeah,
It was a
it's
great
great.
guest.
I'm
It
glad
was
that you came.
And I was like,
I was getting a little
okay.
nervous.
you got a little sick on us, but we like that you
made it.
powered through.
Yeah, you did.
Powered
In
through,
the
made
rain,
it
I was like,
happen.
Erica doesn't like the elements. So
We had everything ready for you, booster seats and all that.
Okay, I see.
But this has been another segment of Accountable Love, and join the discussion on AccountableLove.com.
Yeah,
We
on
appreciate it.
Instagram, on Twitter, YouTube. Check out our YouTube page.
Definitely. But thanks again, Erica.
Thank you.
Well,
Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
All right.
Peace.
Peace.
Bye.